The seemingly harmless game of the Ouija board has grown to become one of the most well-recognized and spooky instruments of the paranormal. There is the subject of countless reports of the strange and unexplained, as well as fictional TV shows and films. These relatively ominous boards are by some accounts reportedly much more than they seem to be, for they are said to be a powerful window between worlds, portals even, through which forces from beyond speak to us, communicate with us, and even reach out and grab us. While Ouija boards are certainly mysterious and share their own stories, there are some cases in which whatever mysterious entities and forces allegedly lie beyond the veil between our world and the next are not merely content with speaking to us through these instruments and are more interested in doing us harm, and in some cases, even inflicting death. Today we will look at one such sinister case in which playing with a Ouija board turned into more than anyone could have bargained for. The Ouija board murder case began in the fall of 1929 when two Indian women from the Cattaraugus Reservation, located near Buffalo in New York State, sat down for a session with a Ouija board. One was a 66-year-old traditional tribal healer and an herbalist named Nancy Bowen, and the other was a 36-year-old reservation school teacher named Leela Jimerson, both of whom were very curious as to what lied behind the mysterious death of Bowen's husband, who was a tribal healer named Sassafras Charlie, who had recently died under strange circumstances. During their session, they would later claim that the spirit of Bowen's dead husband had actually made contact with them and asserted that he had been murdered by a woman called Clothild, and the alleged spirit even went as far as to give a physical description of his killer and the address where she lived at. The name was familiar to Jimerson, who said that she was the wife of a gifted sculptor from Paris named Henry Markand, who lived on the reservation studying the culture of the natives. Markand was well known for his incredibly detailed dioramas, which were lifelike, three-dimensional miniature scenes from nature or history, crafted from various materials and wax figures that were arranged and encased in glass. Markand, who had studied in Europe under the famous master sculptor Rodin, was very well respected for his lush dioramas, that of depicting the native lifestyle, which had been very popular at the New York State Museum, located in Albany. He had also been commissioned to make more to be displayed at the grand opening at Buffalo's Science Museum in 1929. It was for the purpose of researching these dioramas that Markand and his family, which consisted of his wife, Clothild, who was an accomplished painter herself, along with his 4 children. When Markand and his family arrived at the reservation for the first time, Jimerson claimed to not only have known Markand for nearly 10 years, but to have worked with him personally in the capacity of a model for his work. In the days after this Ouija board seance, Bowen began to receive mysterious letters from a person calling herself Mrs. Dooley, who elaborated more on the death of Sassafras Charlie and claimed to know secrets about really what had happened. The series of letters spoke of witchcraft, hexes, black magic, and murder, and suggested that Claushild was in fact a witch, and that dark curse had been placed on both her husband and Nancy herself. One of the mysterious letters said, "I know something secret. I decided that I'd better tell you and help you out with what I can. This is what I know. Charlie Bowen was killed by a witch in the city of Buffalo. It was from a French woman. She killed Charlie because he has good medicine to sell in the city. Her witchcraft didn't work, so she decided to kill him. She killed many that way, Indians and white. But let me tell you more. She said she fixed another doll. This same doll is his wife, Nancy." By all accounts, Bowen took these letters very seriously and became convinced that not only was Claushild responsible for the murder of her husband, but that the woman planned to come for her next. The idea that the French woman was a witch was further engraved into her mind by the fact that Claushild was well known to collect mushrooms, herbs, roots, and plants in the nearby forest. Convinced that Claushild was practicing witchcraft, Bowen then went out and purchased a hammer and a batch of chloroform before setting off to find where Claushild was, with the intent of killing her and putting an end to her sinister curse. Later on, there was a knock at Claushild's door, and when she went to answer the doorbell on March 7th of 1930, she was met with the sight of an elderly woman that she did not know, who pointed at her violently and proclaimed her to be a witch. Bowen then brutally killed Claushild with the hammer, striking her head and body. After the act, and her body laying there dead, covered in blood, Bowen then shoved a chloroform-soaked rag down the French woman's throat and sealed her mouth shut. The body was found by Claushild's horrified 12-year-old son, Henry Markin Jr., when he returned home from school. After discovering his mother's dead body, he immediately ran to the nearby Buffalo Museum to inform his father of what had happened. Upon hearing this from his son, he immediately after contacted the police. When authorities arrived to investigate, they were able to discover that 2 native women had been hanging around the area before the attack, one older and one younger, presumably scouting out the house and assessing the situation. They also soon learned of Henry Markin's connection with Leila Jimerson, and it came out that the two had been having an affair, which Markin at first denied, but later confessed as it was proven by a cache of love letters that was discovered. When Jimerson was brought in as a suspect, she told police of Bowen's involvement, and soon after Bowen was arrested as well, when it was found that she had evidence of bloodied strips of clothing and earpieces of glasses that she had kept from the corpse of Clausdale. Additional questioning showed that on the day of the killing, Leila had called Henry and asked him to take her for a ride in his car, during which time it was assumed that the murder had taken place. The story of the Ouija board murder became a media sensation. The newspapers talked of black magic, witches, and native Indian sorcery. By some accounts, it was even said that the media attacked the Indian people themselves. Authorities searched the reservation looking for evidence, during which time they performed illegal searches of people's homes, and by many accounts showed very little respect for the natives living there. During the resulting trial, Bowen had claimed that she had been compelled by supernatural forces from the Ouija board to kill the French woman, and she said that she at first tried to use hexes and black magic on her, but when the black magic failed, Bowen had decided to take it upon herself to finish off what she called the White Witch. The trial also saw Henry Markin come clean about his affair In addition to the affair, he confessed of having many lovers amongst the native women, which he arrogantly described as being a professional necessity for his work as a diorama modeler. He also claimed that his wife had been fully aware of the situation, but had consented to them. Leila Jimerson's lawyer attempted to present her as a victim of jealousy and rage, painting her involvement as a crime of passion. And as for Bowen, she was seen as being merely a pawn in Jimerson's game and was claimed to have been caught up in Indian witchcraft and not having been fully aware of the gravity of her actions. Surprisingly, it all culminated in being deemed a mistrial when Leila Jimerson suffered a respiratory condition related to tuberculosis and collapsed in the courtroom. Although she confessed to second-degree murder while in the hospital, she later recanted this plea, and when the second trial commenced about a year later, in March of 1931, Jimerson's defense claimed that she had not been responsible in any way for the murder and had not compelled Bowen to carry it out. It was claimed that Henry Markand had been imploring several native women to kill his wife because he was tired of her. Meanwhile, Markand had unbelievably moved off to Albany to remarry his 18-year-old niece, and in the end, Jimerson was acquitted, and Henry Markand was not charged or prosecuted with any crime. And as for Bowen, she was found guilty of manslaughter, but given a sentence of time served. It is unclear just what forces may or may not have been working through the Ouija board to influence the murder, but it is certainly a very weird case that shows that a simple board might hold some sort of influence beyond our current understanding. Thanks for watching. Till next time.
Oh.